Well, hi there and welcome to the Alpha Male 2.0 podcast. I am Caleb Jones. This is Alpha Male 2.0, freedom-focused lifestyle design for men, dating multiple attractive women with no cheating or lying or drama, having location-independent income, living the freest life a modern-day man, the typical modern-day man can live. Today, I'm going to do something fun. And oh, by the way, if you can tell by the video and if you're watching on the audio, I'm in Paraguay right now, so I'm in my travel mode. To that point, I have another podcast called the Sovereign CEO Podcast, where I talk about location-dependent income, 5 flags, international lifestyle. If you're interested in that, you can go to calebjones.com/podcast, and I'm on all the usual podcast platforms. So back to what I was going to say. I am going to revisit in this podcast the topic of the very first podcast I ever did. Way back in like 2010, back when my name was Black Dragon on the internet. And I did like one podcast a year. And I had like sound effects and I had all kinds of funny stuff. It's buried somewhere on this channel. You can find it. And I'm going to come back to this topic now because it is one of the most important topics to discuss and one of the biggest challenges and problems in terms of what men do wrong in their woman life, their dating life, their relationship life. This is an epidemic of men doing this wrong. And that is one topic, 2 phases. The topic is you must know exactly what you want in your woman life down to the specific detail with 100% clarity. And second piece of that, you need to know what you want now, and you need to know what you're going to want or have a good idea of what you're going to want 10, 20, 30 years from now. I'll discuss all that. So, most guys, when I talk to them about what they want in their woman life, in terms of what their goals are, they will say things like, I don't know. Or they'll say things like, I'm a virgin and I want to have sex. Or they'll say things like, I haven't had sex in 8 months, I need to get laid. Or I want a girlfriend. Or, well, I don't know, I want to date a few girls, like, a few hot girls. Like, it'd be cool to have a few hot girls. Date some hot girls like you, Caleb, date some girls. None of these things are objectives. Even I want a girlfriend, that is not an objective. That is a very hazy, I don't know what it is. That is not a crystal clear objective with crystal clarity. The primary reason why I went from, in 2017, I went from divorced, overweight, stupid, out of date, out of practice, beta male dad, 10 years out of practice in terms of dating, because I had been out of a 10-year, 9-year marriage, monogamous marriage. I went from that to guru level dating expert / pickup artist back then, it's a long time ago, by 2009. One of the primary reasons I was able to do that is because I had very specific objectives. It wasn't like, I want to get laid. Oh, I'm divorced now, I can't wait to get laid. That wasn't my goal. My goal was very clear. Here is my goal. My goal was, I want to date on a regular basis 3 women. I had a number, 3 women, all of whom are hot, all of whom know I'm dating and having sex with the other women and continue to date me anyway without screaming and yelling and arguing about it. That was my goal. You see how clear that is and how specific that is? Instead of just, I want to get laid, I want to date some girls, I want a girlfriend, I want to get married. These are not clear. And because I had that clear, specific objective, I had that in less than 2 years, starting from below 0. I had exactly that in less than two years. I don't know in the exact, a year and a half? I think it was a year and a half. Yeah, I had that down. In 2 years, it was about a year and a half I had it, and within 2.5 years, I had it down into a system. And I built a whole company around it, teaching men how to do exactly what I did and what I've been doing for the past 16 years now, okay? Very clear, specific objectives. Now, here's another piece to this. I also had another objective. I knew what I wanted for my life now, but unlike everybody else back then in the pickup artist world, today in the manosphere, red pill world, unlike all these other people and all these other gurus and dating gurus, I had another set of objectives. I had another set of objectives for what I will want down the road. Most people you learn dating advice from don't do this. Most guys who teach dating advice, pickup advice, red pill advice, get laid advice, tend to be young guys, as in under the age of 35, and they focus on how to get pussy, how to get laid, day game, night, whatever, okay? They don't focus on anything else. And that's why so many of these guys, and I could list 10 guys right now, I'm not going to list names, I've done it in the past, of gurus who, when they hit age 35 or 40 or 32, so they floundered. They went, oh, I'm fucking all these girls. Is that all to life? What do I do? I guess I'll go get married. And then they get married and then they break up and they get divorced. And they get ripped off of the divorce. Or they go, oh, I guess I'll take the God pill and become a hardcore Christian. And they go hardcore Christian and they go completely insane. All these scenarios of all these meltdowns of these men, because they knew what they wanted for their life then when they were 27 or 31, but they never said, okay, wait a minute. Am I going to want this forever? Am I going to want to bang all these chicks in my 40s, 50s, 60s? Am I going to want that? No, I'm not. I'm going to want something different. So what is that different? What is that other scenario? And let's plan for that. While I'm doing what I'm doing now, getting laid or what have you, I'm also planning, I have in my long-term plan this other scenario. So what do you want now? What do you want later? This is what no one does. Most men don't even know what they want now. They just give some hazy thing about, I want a girlfriend, which doesn't mean anything. What do you mean by have a girlfriend? That doesn't mean anything. Can you have sex with other women? What does that look like? So in addition to me saying I want 3 women on rotation, but in addition to that, I had another set of parameters where, and I didn't formulate this immediately, but it took me a little while, but I knew I had this. And if you followed me on my blogs way back then, you know the thought process I went through this, because I talked about this in my blogs back then. I said, am I going to want to do this? So right now, back then, I was 35, 36 years old. I said, okay, right now I'm 35, 36 years old, still relatively young. I'm just out of a long, pretty shitty monogamous relationship, so I'm horny as hell. I got some wild oats I got to sow. Am I going to want to do this forever? Am I going to want to date all these girls forever? No. When I'm in my 40s, 50s, 60s, I'm sure I'm going to want something else. So what will I want? So I sat down and planned that out. I said, I will want to settle down with one special woman. I didn't have the terminology of OLTR and MLTR back then, okay? So I didn't have the term OLTR, but this is what I was describing. One special woman that I was committed to emotionally, and I would live with her. My finances would be protected, so either I wouldn't be legally married or I would be legally married with a bunch of protections, foreign protections, prenuptial agreement, blah, blah, blah. And it would be completely non-monogamous. I would still see women on the side on a regular basis forever, and a few other things. And that was basically the OLTR marriage model that I first formulated back in about 2012. So I knew what I wanted then, and I knew what I wanted in the future. So I was covered in both respects. And that's why the past 16 years, my woman life has been a paradise. On a scale from 1 to 10, my woman life for the past entire 16 years, without fail, has been a 10 or an 11. And that's why my objectives have always been very clear in terms of what I wanted now and what I wanted later. I am one of the few people on the entire internet who has been providing consistent messaging for the techniques and the lifestyle design systems that I espouse 16 years ago and now. Alpha Male 2.0 was back in 2000, I introduced that term back in 2013, okay? Still doing it today in 2003, 10 years later. And I was preaching non-monogamy back in 2009, still doing non-monogamy now. I am one of the few people on the entire internet, and this is a fact, this is the truth, who has not radically changed his mind in terms of what he is preaching, in terms of what he's espousing in the last 16 years. Everyone else in the last 16 years just about either vanished off the face of the internet and went private, meaning they went monogamous, or they radically did a 180 on what they were teaching. Roosh famously took all of his dating books and pulled them off Amazon and pulled them off everywhere and became religious and said everything I've been doing is evil and wrong. And everything I've been teaching is evil. My whole life, the last 15 years of what I've been teaching on the internet has been evil and wrong. Now, I don't want to pick on him. There are lots of guys who did variations of this. Guys who said, I will never get married, and then they get married. Okay? Guys who said, I'll never get monogamous, and they get monogamous. Or guys who go the other direction. So I'm one of the few people who's been able to stay consistent because I had clarity both where I wanted and clarity for the long-term view. And that's what you need. You need both. So you need to sit down. Most of you listening to my voice have not done this probably ever. Sit down and write out on a Word document or Google Doc or something, however you want to write, what exactly do I want from my woman life right now? Two things. Number one, that. What do I want? If you say get a girlfriend or get laid, that's not enough. If my woman life was perfect right now, exactly how would it look? Start there. Oh, okay, well, I'd have 2 FBs and 1 MLTR, and and it would be structured like this. I'd see them X amount of time per month, and that's what it looked like. Perfect. Now we have clarity, okay? Maybe it'd be, well, I have an OLTR, and I have 1 or 2 FBs on the side. Great. Or maybe it'd be, I don't want any serious dating. I want 3 FBs, and they're all smoking hot, and I'm going to focus on my work, or focus on my fitness, or focus on my travel. Great. Or maybe you're going to do a 5 flags thing. Well, I'm going to be in 3 different countries, and circle the 3 countries. I want 2 girls in each country. Okay, I'm here in Paraguay right now. Paraguay, excuse me, I say it right. I'm here in Paraguay. I have an entire harem of women here. Great, I see them every time I come, right? And that's another aspect of what I want. I wrote out many years ago, okay? So write that out. What is it you want? Then ask yourself, especially if you're under the age of, 50, am I going to want this in my 40s, 50s, and 60s? Now, odds are overwhelming. Your brain's going to say, no, I'm not. Right now, yeah, but am I going to want to, go to clubs and bars and fuck around on Tinder when I'm 57 years old? Probably not. So then you say, so what will I want when I'm older? And if you say, well, I don't know, how am I supposed to know? Guess. You know yourself pretty well. Guess. You're you, except now it's 25 years in the future, and now you're old you. What does old you want? What do you think? What do you think you might want? So the way I did this is, I knew back in 2007, when I adopted this new lifestyle, I knew of myself. I said, I know myself. I know that deep down I'm a pair bonding type guy. I like being with one woman, not sexually, but emotionally and in lifestyle. I like to share my life with one person and have this one special person and have women on the side. So I knew that about myself. So even though I'm like, I do not want a girlfriend, I don't want anything serious for years. I had nothing serious for years and I didn't want it. And women tried to get serious with me. I had many marriage proposals. I've talked about this in my blogs. And I said no, because I wasn't ready. I didn't want that. But I knew I'm going to want this eventually. So when I was 35, 36, 37, I said, I know in my 40s, 50s, I'm going to want to settle down again. I'm going to want this eventually. Now, maybe not until I'm 52, and that's fine. It ended up being 48 when I did this. So it's pretty close. But I know I'm not going to want this forever, so what do I think I'll want? And I wrote that out, and I was pretty accurate. Now, if you're not 100% accurate on what you want in the future, you can modify it a little bit. I've modified things a little bit. I've talked about like having maybe a super FB instead of having OLTR plus many FBs, OLTR plus 1 special FB. Okay, I've talked about that. That's new, but it's still the same non-monogamous model. It's still the same OLTR model. It's still the same lifestyle. It's not radically different, right? It's okay. You can adjust a little bit as you go. You just have to have clarity. And I know the majority of you out there don't have it. You just have this thing like, I hate my wife, I want to get divorced. That's not enough. When you get divorced, what are you going to do? What is the lifestyle you want? Define it. By the way, this is a technique for all the areas of your life. I'm just focused on woman life right now because that's what you guys are fucked up on. I've noticed that a lot of guys have more clear pictures in terms of what they want for their financial life than their woman life. So if I say, what do you want for your financial life? You'll say, oh, I want to make $140,000 a year through my own business, location dependent. You'll have this nice kind of fleshed out, clear goals. But for your woman life, you're like, well, I just want to get pussy, or I want a girlfriend, or I want to get married, or I want this, or I want to impress my dad. Terrible goals. Read my Unchained Man book. Anyway, you get my point. So figure that out. Write it out. That's the biggest gift you could give yourself, is to determine what you want now and what you want later, and be specific and clear about it, as specific as you can. If you want to get really specific and write down like the race of each girl and the color of each girl's hair, I've done stuff like that. That's fine. You can't be too clear. Get as clear as you can within the parameters of your own personality. Some of you don't need to be that specific, but you need to be a lot more specific than I haven't had sex in 8 months, I need to have sex. That's not a goal. Or I want a girlfriend. Or I want, even if you say I want several girls on rotation, what does that mean? FBs, MLTRs, how many girls? How often do you see them? Figure all that out, write it out, and then go get it using my materials or other materials you have on the internet. Cool? Cool. All right. I'll see you in the next podcast or the next video. Have fun. Bye.